Good evening, friends. Make yourself comfortable. Try to leave the worries of this day behind for a while. Everything can wait a little. There is no need to rush anywhere now. You can simply relax, take a deep breath, and let your thoughts gradually calm down. An unusual journey awaits us today. We will go to the most remote and mysterious islands of our planet, where a person would not live for even a minute. To places that are far from familiar cities, roads, and civilization. Some of them are surrounded by thousands of kilometers of ocean. Others hide within themselves the forces of nature that are difficult for a person to fight. There are islands where the danger comes from volcanoes. There are those where nature itself seems to tell a person, "You are not the boss here." But this journey will not be scary. On the contrary, we will slowly move from one island to another, listening to the stories of the oceans, winds, and people who once accidentally discovered these amazing corners of the earth. Imagine a map of the world, huge continents, endless oceans, and somewhere among them there are small points of land scattered. Most people will never see them with their own eyes. Some of these islands are so remote that even today it is difficult to get there. But it is places like this that help us understand how amazing our planet is. The world is much larger than our daily routes. There are many more cities in which we live, and tonight we will gradually open this huge world. Our journey begins in the Indian Ocean. There is one of the most mysterious islands on Earth, North Sentinel. If you look at a map of the Indian Ocean, you will notice a chain of islands belonging to India. These are the Andaman Islands. Most of them are known to travelers. There are beaches, boats, small settlements, and tourists. But among these islands, there is one place that has remained closed to the outside world for many decades. This is North Sentinel. At first glance, he looks completely ordinary. The area of the island is only a few tens of square kilometers. It is covered with dense tropical forests. The shores are surrounded by coral reefs. From a bird's-eye view, the island seems like a real piece of paradise. White stripes of beaches, dark green tree crowns, turquoise water all around, soft ocean waves. If you don't know the history of this place, you might think that this is an ideal place to relax. But North Sentinel is unique for a completely different reason. There are people living on the island who have virtually no contact with the modern world. Sentinelese. This is one of the most isolated peoples on the entire planet. They attack anyone who tries to approach their shore. Spears and arrows will fly towards the boat even before it touches the shore. Scientists suggest that their ancestors settled here thousands of years ago, perhaps even when many famous civilizations were just beginning their development. A huge amount of time has passed since then. Eras have changed. Empires arose. Cities were built. New technologies were invented. People have learned to fly in the sky and explore space. But in North Sentinel, life continued to go its own way. Imagine an island with no cars, no electricity, no internet, no modern buildings, only the forest, ocean, and people living the way their distant ancestors lived. Sometimes it seems surprising that in the 21st century a place like this still exists. But this is precisely why North Sentinel is of such interest to the whole world. The first mentions of the island appeared a long time ago. Sailors passing through these waters sometimes noticed a lush green island on the horizon, but it was not always possible to land there. Coral reefs made approaching the shore difficult, and the local residents made it clear that they did not want to see uninvited guests. Over time, travelers began to understand that the Sentinelese deliberately avoided any contact. They can be understood. For them, the outside world always remained something unknown. Imagine for a moment that you live on a small island. Your world consists of forest, coast, and ocean. You know every tree, every path, every section of the coast. And then one day, a huge ship appears on the horizon. Strangers, unfamiliar clothes, unfamiliar objects. All this could seem like something completely alien and even dangerous. Therefore, the Sentinelese defended their territory for centuries. It was thanks to this that they managed to maintain their independence. It's interesting to imagine a typical day on the island. The sun rises over the ocean. The first rays of light break through the dense foliage. The voices of birds begin to sound in the forest. The night world gradually gives way to the morning. Somewhere along the coast, people are preparing to go fishing. Someone goes into the forest. Some people go about their daily business. For the inhabitants of the island, all this is part of normal life. No news. There's no rush. No endless notifications. Only the rhythm of nature. Sunrise, tide, low tide, the onset of the rainy season, change of winds. For thousands of years, people on the island lived this way, and perhaps this is why North Sentinel remains one of the most mysterious places on Earth. But a question arises. Why would it be difficult for a person to live here even for a short time? In fact, there are several reasons. The first reason is obvious. The island is closed to visitors. Any attempts to land may lead to conflict with local residents. But there is another reason, much more important. These are diseases. Modern man encounters a huge number of viruses and bacteria every day. Our body gradually learns to fight them. But the Sentinelese lived in isolation for thousands of years. Therefore, even an ordinary disease that seems harmless to us could become a serious threat to the inhabitants of the island. That is why the Indian authorities have created a special protected zone around North Sentinel. Today, it is prohibited to approach the island. This ban exists not only to protect people from outside, it exists primarily to protect the Sentinelese themselves. Sometimes, the best way to help is to just leave someone alone. When you look at photographs of North Sentinel, it is difficult to shake off a sense of mystery. What is happening now in the depths of its forests? What is a typical day like on the island? What stories do residents tell each other in the evenings? What legends are passed down from generation to generation? Almost no one knows the answers to these questions, and perhaps that is why the island continues to attract the attention of people around the world. We live in the era of satellites and the internet. It seems as if there are no more white spots left on Earth. But North Sentinel reminds us that some mysteries still exist. Some doors remain closed, and maybe it's even better that way. While the ocean waves slowly roll onto the shore of the island, and the warm wind moves the tops of the tropical trees, we are gradually leaving this amazing place. A new journey awaits us, across thousands of kilometers of ocean, to the distant shores of Japan. There, where a volcano rises above the island, capable of changing the life of the entire island. But this is the next chapter of our story. For now, you can just imagine the sound of the North Sentinel surf. Calm, measured, almost lulling, and allow yourself to relax a little more. Miyake-jima Island. Let's leave behind the warm waters of the Indian Ocean and mentally rise higher on the world map. Japan is ahead of us, country of thousands of islands, a country of mountains, volcanoes, ocean currents, and ancient traditions. Far south of Tokyo, amidst the expanse of the Pacific Ocean, lies the island of Miyake-jima. There is an active volcano here, and emissions of sulfur dioxide occur constantly. To survive, you must constantly wear a gas mask without taking it off. Without it, death occurs within an hour. On the map, it looks quite small. When viewed from an airplane, you can see a green, almost circular island surrounded by deep blue ocean waters. At first glance, it seems that calm reigns here. Forests cover the slopes. Small roads wind through the trees. The waves crash softly on the black volcanic shores. But underneath this calm picture lies enormous power. A power that lies deep underground. In the very heart of the island rises the Oyama volcano. It was thanks to him that this island once appeared. If we could travel back hundreds of thousands of years, we would see a completely different picture. There would be no trees, no birds, no people, only the ocean. And then, Somewhere deep under the seabed, magma began to awaken. At first, there were small eruptions, then more and more powerful. The lava gradually solidified, layered one on top of the other. Years passed, centuries passed, and gradually, a new island appeared above the surface of the ocean. This is how nature created Miyake-jima, an island born of fire. Today, it is difficult to imagine that there is still an active volcano beneath these green slopes. Birds sing in the forests, the surf is roaring on the coast, people mind their own business. But the volcano never completely falls asleep. He is like a huge giant who sometimes opens his eyes and reminds him of his existence. The history of the island is filled with similar moments. Residents have watched the eruptions for centuries. Sometimes they were relatively small, sometimes very serious. Each new generation knew, living next to a volcano requires respect for nature. It is impossible to tell a volcano to calm down. You can't force him to obey. You can only carefully monitor his behavior and be prepared for the unexpected. Residents of the island especially remember the year 2000. In the summer of that year, the volcano began to show unusual activity. Scientists monitored the situation closely. The tremors became more and more frequent. It was as if the earth was warning people that changes were coming. Then the eruption began. Clouds of ash rose over the island. Volcanic gases began to emerge from cracks in the ground. Among them was sulfur dioxide. In high concentrations, it is dangerous to humans. Every day, the situation became more complicated. In the end, a difficult decision was made. All residents had to be evacuated. Imagine this moment. You live on an island your whole life. You know every street, every shore, every tree near the house. And suddenly, you have to leave all this, not knowing when you will be able to return back. This was a difficult ordeal for many people, but safety turned out to be more important. The island is temporarily deserted, people left, and the volcano continued to live its own life. For several years, Miyake-jima remained practically without inhabitants. Only specialists and researchers visited the island from time to time. They measured the gas concentration. We studied the state of the volcano. We observed the changes in nature. Gradually, the situation began to improve. The danger level was decreasing. Over time, people were allowed to return home. But even after returning, life was never the same. For a long time, many residents wore special protective masks. Air control systems have appeared on the island. Sensors constantly measured the concentration of gases. In case of danger, special signals warned the population. This is difficult to imagine for residents of most cities in the world. We rarely think about what kind of air we breathe. But on Miyake-jima, people learned to be attentive even to this, because nature itself taught them caution. And yet, it is surprising that despite such history, people continue to live on the island. It would seem, why return to where there is an active volcano? But the answer becomes clear if you imagine the beauty of this place. Early in the morning, a light haze rises over the ocean. Sunlight slowly touches the mountain slopes. Birds start their day. A light wind brings the smell of the sea. Somewhere in the distance, you can hear the sound of waves. At such moments, the island seems surprisingly calm. So calm that it's hard to believe his turbulent past. Nature is often like this. She can be both beautiful and powerful, tender and dangerous, quiet and incredibly strong. Miyake-jima is a wonderful reminder of this. If we had been here at night, a completely different picture would have awaited us. After sunset, the island gradually plunges into darkness. The ocean becomes almost black. Stars appear in the sky. Thousands of stars. In the distance, you can only hear the sound of waves. Sometimes it feels like the whole world around you is slowing down. And only somewhere deep underground does the invisible life of the volcano continue. It remains part of the island, part of its history, part of his character. People come and go. Generations replace each other. and the volcano continues to watch everything that happens, year after year, century after century. Interestingly, volcanic islands often become home to unique nature. The young volcanic soil gradually turns into fertile soil. Plants begin to grow on it. Insects appear. Birds build nests. It's as if nature is recreating the whole world. This happened at Miyake-jima. Today, the island is covered with dense forests. Many species of birds can be found here. Some of them arrive here during long migrations across the Pacific Ocean. For them, the island becomes a temporary refuge among the endless waters. Imagine a small bird that has traveled hundreds of kilometers over the ocean. After a long flight, she notices a green island, a safe place to relax, an opportunity to gain strength before a new journey. For her, Miyake-jima becomes a real salvation. But for humans, this island will always be a reminder of how powerful the earth can be. We build houses, we pave roads, we create cities. But deep under our feet, processes that began millions of years ago continue. Tectonic plates are moving, magma rises, mountains are forming, new islands are born. And sometimes, nature reminds us of this. Calm down, without malice, without warning, just showing your strength. That is why Miyake-jima found himself on our journey today. This is a place where it would be difficult for a person to live for long without preparation. A place where the air itself can become dangerous. But at the same time, it is an amazingly beautiful island. An island that learned to live next to a volcano. And now our journey continues. We are leaving the shores of Japan. Quiet volcanic slopes remain behind. The sound of the ocean is gradually becoming quieter. South America is ahead of us, coast of Brazil, and an island that has long received an unusual nickname, Snake Island, a place where nature chose completely different masters. This is where we will go next. Queimada Grande, Snake Island. Our journey continues. We leave the quiet shores of Japan and travel across the vast Pacific Ocean and then across parts of South America. The waters of the Atlantic await us ahead. It is here, about 30 kilometers from the coast of Brazil, that there is a small island that has long become the hero of countless legends. It is called Queimada Grande, but much more often you can hear another name, Snake Island. About 5 snakes live on 1 square meter. One has only to utter these words, and the imagination immediately begins to draw a variety of pictures. Some imagine a dense jungle in which it is literally impossible to take a step. Someone remembers old adventure films. Someone thinks about a mysterious place that hides many dangers. As often happens, the truth lies somewhere between legends and reality. But one thing is for sure. Queimada Grande is truly one of the most unusual islands on Earth. Imagine early morning. The ocean is still calm after the night. The sun is just beginning to rise above the horizon. The first rays of light touch the rocky shores of the island. Seabirds circle above the water. A light wind sways the treetops. It looks like a very beautiful place. It's hard to believe that this particular island is considered by many to be one of the most dangerous in the world. But the history of Queimada Grande began long before the appearance of people. Many thousands of years ago, the level of the world's seas was much lower. The territory of the modern island was part of the mainland. Animals could move freely between forests and the coast. There was no isolation then. But gradually the climate changed. The glaciers were melting. The water level was rising. Year after year, century after century. And one day the future island found itself completely cut off from the mainland. Thus began a completely new chapter of his story. When the island was surrounded by water, many animals disappeared. Some were unable to adapt to the new conditions. Others gradually died out. But there were also those who managed to survive. Among them were snakes. Left in isolation, they began to develop in their own way. Generations replaced each other. Nature continued its endless experiment. And thousands of years later, one of the most unusual species of snakes on the planet appeared on the island. Golden Island Keffiyeh. This snake is found only here, nowhere else in the world. Imagine a creature that has evolved over thousands of years in complete isolation, no contact with the outside world, without the ability to leave your island. The result is a unique variety that is now being studied by scientists from all over the world. Interestingly, the snakes themselves never aspired to become famous. They simply occupied their ecological niche. They lived among the trees. We were hunting. They multiplied. We survived. But people have always liked unusual stories, especially if there is something mysterious about them. Over time, a huge number of legends have appeared around Queimada Grande. Some said that there are snakes literally everywhere on the island. Others argued that a person could not walk even a few steps without meeting them. Of course, such stories are greatly exaggerated. In fact, the island remains a normal natural ecosystem. But the number of snakes here is really much higher than in many other places. That is why visiting the island is limited. The lighthouse played a special role in the history of the island. Many years ago, a lighthouse was built on Queimada Grande to help ships navigate near dangerous coastal cliffs. Today, the lighthouse operates automatically. But once upon a time, people were watching him. It was then that numerous sea legends began to appear. Sailors love to tell stories, especially on long evenings after swimming. Some stories were true. Others gradually turned into beautiful inventions. Stories appeared about lighthouse keepers, about mysterious incidents, about unusual encounters on the island. Over time, many of these stories became part of local folklore. It is difficult to say where truth ends and fantasy begins, but it is precisely such legends that make such places even more interesting. If you imagine the island during the day, it looks quite peaceful. Sunlight illuminates the green slopes. Birds fly from tree to tree. The ocean sparkles under the sun. Life goes on as usual. But Queimada Grande becomes especially beautiful in the evening. The sun is slowly sinking towards the horizon. The sky is painted in shades of gold and orange. The shadows are getting longer. The temperature gradually decreases. The ocean begins to reflect the last rays of the passing day. Then dusk comes. Silence falls on the island. Only the wind continues to rustle among the branches. Somewhere you can hear the voices of night birds, and far out to sea the lights of passing ships flicker. Probably sailors who observed the island from afar often wondered what was happening among its dark forests. What creatures hide there at night? What secrets does this small piece of land hold? But if you look at the island through the eyes of nature, it becomes clear that there is no mysticism here. There is just an amazing example of how isolation can change the development of life. The island has become a kind of open-air laboratory, a place where evolution followed its own path. This is why scientists are studying Queimada Grande so closely. It helps to better understand the processes that have been occurring in nature for thousands of years. Every animal species here is part of a larger story. Stories of survival, stories of adaptation, stories of endless change. Some it seems surprising how different islands exist on our planet. Most recently, we were in Miyake-jima, where the volcano plays a major role. Previously, we visited North Sentinel, which keeps the secret of the ancient people. And now we find ourselves on an island that has become home to unique snakes. Each of them is completely different from the previous one. But this is what makes the journey so interesting. The world never ceases to amaze. There is always a place that is different from everything else. Night finally falls on Queimada Grande. The waves slowly roll onto the shore. A light wind comes from the ocean. The first stars appear above the island. Somewhere far away, the light of a lighthouse flickers, and we continue our journey further. An even more remote place awaits us ahead, an island that is located almost in the middle of the South Atlantic, Ascension Island, one of the loneliest islands on the whole Earth. That's where we'll head next. Ascension Island. Our journey continues. We leave the shores of Brazil, and the ship of our imagination once again sets out on the open ocean. There is only water around. As far as the eye can see, there is ocean everywhere. Day after day, night after night. This is exactly how sailors of past centuries felt when crossing the Atlantic. In those days, the ocean seemed endless. The maps were imperfect. There was no connection with the outside world. Every long trip turned into a real adventure. And among this vast expanse of water, there were islands that became a real salvation. One of these islands was Ascension. Even its name itself sounds unusual, a bit mysterious, a little solemn. As if we are talking not just about an island, but about some special place. And in a certain sense, it is so. Imagine the huge Atlantic. If you look at a map, you can see how far this island is from major continents. Africa is thousands of kilometers away. South America is also thousands of kilometers away. There is only ocean on all sides. Therefore, many travelers call Ascension Island one of the most isolated places on the planet. When the first sailors spotted it on the horizon, it was a real event. After long weeks of sailing, the appearance of land always brought joy, even if this land did not look very hospitable. And this is exactly how Ascension Island seemed to the first visitors. Once upon a time, it looked nothing like the green islands from tourist brochures. Most of its surface was volcanic rock, almost no trees, almost without vegetation, almost no fresh water. The sun was heating up the stones. The wind flowed unhindered along the slopes. Sometimes it seemed as if the island was part of another planet. The black lava fields resembled a lunar landscape, especially under the bright midday sun. If a person were left here without preparation or supplies, survival would be extremely difficult. Fresh water was rare. The shadow was rare. The soil remained dry. Living in such conditions requires enormous endurance, but that is precisely why the island became interesting to researchers. The nature of the Ascension has always surprised people. At first glance, it seemed that almost nothing could exist here. However, life gradually found ways to adapt. Colonies of seabirds appeared on the rocky shores. The ocean around the island was filled with fish. Sea turtles have begun using local beaches to lay their eggs. Green sea turtles are especially impressive. Every year they make incredible journeys across the ocean. They cover thousands of kilometers. And all in order to return to a familiar shore. To the very beach where they were once born. Scientists are still amazed by this ability. How do turtles find their way across a vast ocean? How do you navigate among the endless waters? There is no exact answer yet. But every year they continue to make their amazing journeys. It's as if they are following an ancient route that has existed for many millions of years. However, the island's most unusual history began in the 19th century. People decided to change the very nature of this place. At first glance, the idea seemed almost impossible. How to turn a dry volcanic island into a greener place? But scientists and botanists decided to try. Plants from all over the world began to be brought to the island. Trees from Europe, shrubs from Africa, plants from South America, species from Asia. Hundreds of different plants ended up on one small island. Gradually, something amazing happened. On the highest part of the island, a new ecosystem began to form. Trees appeared. There is more moisture. The microclimate has changed. The result was a real forest. Today, this place is known as Green Mountain, and many travelers are surprised to see the dense vegetation among the surrounding volcanic landscapes. It was as if a small green world suddenly appeared in the middle of the desert. If we climbed to the top of Green Mountain early in the morning, an amazing sight would open before us. Clouds slowly slide along the slopes. The leaves are covered with drops of moisture. Birds start their day. There is a chill in the air, not at all the heat that reigns on the coast. From the top, you can see the ocean, huge, limitless, blue to the horizon. It is at such moments that the remoteness of the island is especially clearly felt. It seems as if the rest of the world is very far away. Millions of people continue to live somewhere beyond the horizon. Cities are noisy, airplanes are flying, trains are rushing. But here, time flows differently. Slower. Calm down. Hush. Nightfall is considered one of the most beautiful moments on the island. After sunset, the air gradually cools down, the ocean is darkening, the last rays of the sun disappear over the horizon, and then the real show begins. Stars appear in the sky, the brightest ones first, then more and more new ones. After some time, the entire sky is strewn with luminous dots. Due to the distance from major cities, there is almost no light pollution. This is why the stars appear especially bright. Sometimes you can see the Milky Way, a huge, luminous stripe crossing the entire sky. For ancient sailors, it was the stars that were the main helpers in the ocean. They determined the direction, helped us find our way home. And when you stand under such a sky, it's easy to imagine yourself as a traveler of the past. The man who first saw this island after long weeks of sailing. But even here, nature remains stronger than man. Ascension Island constantly reminds us of this. Despite all the efforts of people, most of its territory remains harsh and inaccessible. Sun, wind, volcanic rocks, ocean. They continue to shape the appearance of the island. A person can change some details, plant trees, build roads, erect buildings, but the main forces of nature remain unchanged. This is why places like this command such respect. They remind us of the true scale of our planet, about how ancient the Earth is, and how short human life turns out to be compared to its history. The night is getting deeper. The ocean rustles quietly at the foot of the cliffs. The stars continue to twinkle over the island, and we are getting ready to move on. One of the most unusual places of today's journey awaits us. An island that just recently did not exist at all. An island that was born literally before people's eyes. A place where scientists watch new life begin. We are heading to the shores of Iceland, to the young island of Surtsey, where the Earth recently created a new piece of land in the middle of the ocean. Surtsey, the island that never existed. We leave behind the warm waters of the South Atlantic and are mentally transported far north, where the ocean gets colder, where the wind carries with it the breath of the Arctic, where the sky is often covered with gray clouds and volcanoes and glaciers have shaped the appearance of the Earth for thousands of years. We are approaching Iceland, the land of fire and ice. This is where one of the youngest islands on our planet is located, Surtsey Island. But the most amazing thing is that until quite recently, it simply did not exist. Not on any map, not in any atlas, nowhere. In its place, there was only the ocean, deep and cold. The same as he remained for thousands of years. And then an event occurred that not every generation of people experiences. A new island was born before the eyes of mankind. Imagine a November morning in 1963. Several fishermen work in the sea off the south coast of Iceland. The weather is cool. The ocean habitually rocks boats on the waves. Everything looks completely normal. But suddenly people notice a strange phenomenon. In the distance, a huge column of steam rises above the water. At first you might think that this is an unusual cloud or fog, but then it becomes clear. Something is happening beneath the surface of the ocean, something very powerful. A volcano began to awaken in the depths. Magma rose through the seawater. When the hot rocks met the cold ocean, powerful explosions occurred. Clouds of steam, ash, and volcanic rock rose into the air. Thus began the story of Surtsey. The eruption continued for weeks, then for months. Day after day, the volcano ejected new portions of lava. The ocean seemed to be trying to hide the emerging land under its waves, But the volcano turned out to be stronger. Gradually, a small piece of land appeared above the surface of the water, very small at first, then more and more. Thus, a new island was born. It is very rare that people get the opportunity to witness such an event. Typically, island formation occurs either too slowly or too long ago. But Surtsey was an exception. Scientists literally followed his birth. We took photographs, measured. We studied every stage of this amazing process. The island received its name in honor of Surt. In Scandinavian mythology, this was the name of the fire giant, and it's hard to come up with a more appropriate name. After all, the island really appeared thanks to fire. Deep underground processes took place that lasted millions of years. Magma rose from the depths of the planet. She broke through. It was cooling down, became a stone, and step by step, she built a new land. Sometimes it's good to think about these things. We are accustomed to consider the world around us as something constant. The mountains seem eternal. The islands seem unchanged. But in fact, the Earth continues to change even today, right now. Slowly, almost unnoticed, but constantly. Surtsey was a wonderful reminder of this. When the eruption ended, scientists were presented with a unique opportunity. A completely new island lay before them, almost a blank slate. There was no familiar ecosystem here yet. Trees didn't grow. There were no bushes. There were no animals. Only volcanic rocks, ashes, wind, and the ocean. An interesting question has arisen. What's next? How will nature begin to develop a new landmass? Which living organisms will appear first? How long will it take for a full-fledged ecosystem to emerge? We decided to look for answers to these questions in the most unusual way. People practically did not interfere. The island was declared a protected area. Access there was strictly limited, to observe nature in its natural form, without human influence. During the first years, Surtsey looked very stern. Black fields of frozen lava, constant wind, cold rains, almost complete absence of life. If a person were left here without preparation, the conditions would be extremely difficult. There is practically no fresh water. The weather is unpredictable. The soil is not yet ready to support the usual vegetation. A real challenge even for an experienced traveler. But nature has incredible patience. She's never in a hurry. What seems like a desert to humans may only be the beginning of a long journey for nature. After some time, the first guests arrived on the island. Not people, birds. They flew here during their travels over the ocean. We rested on the banks. They left traces of their presence. And along with them, they brought plant seeds. On the paws, on feathers, sometimes even by accident. This is how the first changes began. The first plants appeared in small cracks between the stones. Just a little at first. A few green sprouts among the black lava. But for the island, it was a real miracle. Life has taken its first step. Year after year, the situation changed. New plant species appeared. Next came the insects, then other living organisms. Each new creature became part of a growing ecosystem. Surtsey gradually transformed from a bare volcanic island into a living world. Scientists observed this process as if it were an accelerated version of Earth's history, the same story that once happened after the appearance of new islands around the world. Only now could she be seen with her own eyes. Surtsey becomes especially beautiful in summer. The northern sun does not disappear behind the horizon for a long time. The nights remain bright. The ocean shimmers with silvery hues. Seabirds rest on the rocks. The wind brings the smell of salt and cold water. It seems incredible that just a few decades ago, this island did not exist. For geology, this is literally an instant, almost yesterday. And yet the island already lives its own life. If you imagine an evening on Surtsey, there are only a few sounds you can hear. The sound of the waves, bird calls, the whistle of the wind. There are no cars here, no cities, no human fuss, only nature. And that's why the island seems so special. It allows you to see the world in its natural state, without unnecessary noise, no rush, without the constant movement of civilization. Sometimes scientists call Surtsey a time machine in reverse, because it allows you to look not into the past, but into the very beginning of the future. See how life gradually creates a new world, how the first plants appear, how the first communities of living organisms are formed, how nature, step by step, transforms lifeless land into a full-fledged ecosystem. This is a process that usually takes thousands of years, but here it can be observed almost in real time. While the wind continues to blow over the young volcanic rocks and the ocean slowly wears away the shores of the new island, our journey continues. We leave Surtsey behind. We leave a place where the earth recently created a new piece of land. An even harsher region awaits us ahead. North Pacific, coast of Alaska. Rachel Carson Island is there. A place where the cold ocean, fogs, and wild nature continue to live according to their ancient laws. This is where we will go next. Rachel Carson Island is a land of fog and cold ocean. Our journey continues. We leave the young volcanic shores of Surtsey and head even further to the northwest, where the ocean becomes harsher, where summer seems like a short visitor, where the winds come from the icy expanses and remind us of the proximity of the Arctic. Before us is Alaska, one of the wildest regions of our planet, a land of vast forests, glaciers, whales, and endless seas. This is where Rachel Carson Island is located. This is not the island that tourist guides often write about. It is not famous for its luxurious beaches. There are no resorts here. There are no big cities. There is no infrastructure familiar to humans. But there is something else here. Real, wild nature, the way it existed long before the advent of civilization. Imagine early morning. There is a thick fog over the ocean. It moves slowly over the water like a living creature. Rocks appear and disappear in its white haze. Somewhere in the distance you can hear the cry of a seabird. The waves calmly hit the shore. The sky and ocean almost merge with each other. In such places, it is especially easy to feel the silence. Not absolute silence, and natural. The one that consists of many calm sounds. The sound of the wind, the rustling of waves, bird calls, distant splashes of water. This kind of silence has existed for thousands of years, and it is completely independent of the person. The climate here cannot be called hospitable. Even in summer, the temperature is rarely high. The weather can change in just a few hours. The sun is shining in the morning. Fog comes during the day. In the evening, it starts to rain. And at night, a strong wind rises. For an unprepared person, such conditions quickly become a serious test. This is why many islands off the coast of Alaska remain virtually uninhabited. Nature makes its own rules here and demands respect. But what seems difficult for humans often turns out to be ideal for animals. The waters around the island are filled with life. The migration routes of whales pass through here. Sea lions rest on coastal rocks. Seals appear near the shores, and birds are constantly circling in the sky. Some of them travel thousands of kilometers during seasonal flights. For them, the island becomes a vacation spot, a safe haven in the middle of the vast ocean. Sometimes it seems surprising how closely connected life is on the planet. A bird can be born thousands of kilometers away, then cross half the globe, and one day find yourself on a small island off the coast of Alaska. The local waters are especially impressive. They look harsh, cold, sometimes even unfriendly. But it is precisely these conditions that allow marine life to thrive here. Nutrients rise from the depths. A rich ecosystem is being formed. The ocean becomes home to a huge number of creatures. If you look at the surface of the water for a long time, you may notice unexpected movements. Fish splash, the appearance of a seal, or even the back of a whale briefly rising above the surface. Moments like these remind us how alive the world around us remains, even where at first glance it seems empty. With the arrival of autumn, the island becomes even more harsh. The days are gradually shortening, the nights are getting longer, storms are coming more and more often. Huge waves crash onto the coastal cliffs, the wind howls among the cliffs. The ocean shows its true power. Sailors have always respected such waters, and not by chance. Here, nature easily reminds people who is the real owner of these places. But even in the harshest times, the island remains beautiful. There is a special beauty in northern nature. It is different from tropical islands. There are no bright palm trees or snow-white beaches here, but there are endless shades of gray, blue, and green. There are fogs. There is the cold light of the northern sun. There is a feeling of spaciousness, and there is a feeling of antiquity. It's as if this world has existed for a very long time and will exist long after us. If you imagine a winter night on the island, you will see an amazing picture. The ocean is almost completely hidden in darkness. The wind is getting stronger. The sky is filled with stars. And sometimes the northern lights appear. Green and blue waves of light move slowly over the horizon. It was as if the sky itself had decided to show a rare performance. People have always admired this phenomenon. Some considered it a message from the gods. Others, the dance of spirits. Today we know the scientific explanation, but the northern lights still remain one of the most beautiful sights on the planet. Rachel Carson Island reminds us that not all beautiful places are livable. Sometimes nature creates areas that thrive best without the constant presence of humans, places where the main thing is the ocean, wind, birds, animals, and the eternal rhythm of natural life. That is why this island occupies a special place in our journey. It shows the other side of the earth, calm, cold, wild, and amazingly beautiful. Night gradually falls on the northern waters. The fog begins to gather over the ocean again. The last calls of birds fade away in the distance, and we move on. The last island of today's journey awaits us ahead. A completely different world. Warm ocean, lagoons, palm trees, and the endless expanses of the Pacific Ocean. We are heading to Remirán Island, last stop before returning home. Remirán is a small world in the middle of an endless ocean. After the cold shores of Alaska, it is especially pleasant to imagine the warm waters of the Pacific Ocean. Thousands of kilometers of blue water, slowly floating clouds, sunlight reflecting on the surface of the sea. And somewhere among this huge water desert is the small island of Remirán. It is part of the Marshall Islands, and like many Pacific atolls, it looks almost fabulous. But, as we have already seen during our trip, the appearance of the island does not always tell the whole story. If you look at Remirán from above, you can see a thin strip of land surrounded by a lagoon of amazing color. The water here is so clear that sometimes it seems as if boats are floating above the seabed. The sun's rays penetrate deep below the surface. The corals are illuminated, create an endless play of light. It seems like this is a real paradise. But imagine for a moment a person who finds himself here completely alone. No stock, no connection with the outside world. Without the ability to quickly get help. And then the island begins to look completely different. The ocean has always been able to create illusions. From a distance, the small island seems simple and understandable. It seems like you could easily live here. Fishing, collect coconuts, enjoy the sun and sea breeze. But the reality of remote atolls is much more complex. The main problem of such islands is isolation. On the map, Remirán looks like a small dot among the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. When you look at the globe, you begin to understand the true scale of this distance. It is very far from the nearest large settlements. Big cities are even further away. There is only ocean on all sides. Day after day, week after week, month after month. That is why life on such islands has always required a special character. The people who inhabited the Pacific atolls learned for centuries to exist in conditions of limited resources. They knew the sea very well. They knew how to read the clouds. They understood the direction of the winds. They memorized the movements of the stars. For them, the ocean was not an obstacle, but a road. A huge road without asphalt or signs. Imagine a morning on Remiron. The sun slowly appears above the horizon. The sky gradually turns golden. The lagoon resembles a huge mirror. The water is so calm that it reflects the clouds with almost no distortion. At such moments, it seems as if the whole world has frozen. No car noise. There are no sounds of big cities. There's no rush. Just the slight rustle of palm leaves, quiet surf, and the endless calm of the ocean. Perhaps it is moments like these that make a person feel like a part of nature. Not the owner, not an observer. Namely, part of a huge world. However, the ocean is never completely predictable. Sometimes calm seas can change in a matter of hours. Dark clouds appear on the horizon. The wind is picking up. The waves are getting higher. A storm begins. For residents of large cities, bad weather most often means inconvenience. But for small islands, a storm can be a serious challenge, especially when it comes to low atolls. Strong waves can change the coastline, move sand, breaking trees, flood certain areas of land. Nature constantly reminds us that even the most beautiful island remains part of the ocean, and the ocean is always stronger than man. The nights on such islands are especially impressive. When the sun completely disappears below the horizon, the real show begins. We are used to seeing the night sky through city lights, through the street lights, through the illuminated streets. But on the remote islands, everything is different. Here, the darkness remains truly dark. This is why stars appear incredibly bright. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of stars. They are reflected in the lagoon, twinkling over the ocean, creates a feeling of infinity. Sometimes you can see a shooting star. Sometimes a bright planet near the horizon. And sometimes it seems that the entire sky is slowly rotating over a calm island. Moments like these help us understand why ancient sailors studied the skies so carefully. For them, the stars were a map, compass, a guide, and a friend during long journeys. It is interesting to imagine the first people who once reached such islands. Without modern ships, no satellite navigation, no radio communication, small boats only, experience, ocean knowledge, and great courage. They crossed enormous distances. They found tiny pieces of land in the vast Pacific Ocean. Today it seems almost incredible, but this is how many islands in the region were populated. Each such atoll preserves the memory of the great sea voyages of the past. If a person found himself on Remiron without preparation, he would quickly encounter difficulties. Fresh water always remains the most valuable resource. Soil is limited. Weather conditions can change dramatically. Help is very far away. That is why such islands require respect. They are beautiful, but at the same time they remind us of the fragility of human existence, about how much we depend on the environment, from the water, from the climate, from nature. But today we don't see the island as a test. We look at it as an amazing corner of the planet, a place where the ocean and sky seem to meet each other, a place where time moves a little slower, the place that ends our great journey. Travel to the most unusual islands in the world, and now it is time to gradually return home. Conclusion. Our journey is coming to an end. During this night, we crossed a huge part of our planet. We visited various parts of the Earth, on islands that are far from the usual routes, on islands where nature is still the main master. We started our journey in North Sentinel, an island that still holds the secret of one of the most isolated peoples in the world. We heard the sound of the waves of the Indian Ocean. We saw dense, tropical forests, and we felt the atmosphere of a place where time seemed to flow according to its own laws. Then we went to Miyake-jima, there where the volcano continues to live under the green slopes, where people learn to exist next to a huge power hidden deep underground. After this, we were met by Queimada Grande, an island that has become home to unique snakes, a place where nature developed in complete isolation for many thousands of years. Then we crossed the Atlantic and ended up on Ascension Island. We saw one of the most remote corners of the planet. We got to know his amazing story, and they climbed the Green Mountain, which grew among volcanic landscapes. After that, Surtsey was waiting for us, an island born literally before the eyes of humanity, a place where you can watch a new life begin, how nature creates a new world step by step. We then visited the chilly shores of Rachel Carson Island. We saw the fogs of Alaska. We heard the cries of seabirds and felt the breath of the Northern Ocean. We ended our trip on the quiet Remiron Atoll among the lagoons, palm, starry sky, and the endless Pacific Ocean. All these islands are very different. Some are covered with jungle. Others are made of volcanic rocks. Some are in the tropics. Others are near the cold northern seas. But they have one important feature in common. They remind us how diverse our planet is, how amazing the world around us remains, and how little we sometimes know about him. Each island is a separate story, a separate chapter of a huge book called Earth, a book that continues to be written right now, every day, every minute, every second. And now our journey truly comes to an end. You can let go of all thoughts about distant shores, leave the noise of the oceans behind, leave volcanoes, fogs, and endless lagoons behind the horizon. Take a slow breath, and the same calm exhalation. Feel how your body gradually relaxes, how it becomes heavier and calmer, how the worries of today go away. Let the noise of distant waves gradually dissolve into silence. Let the ocean remain somewhere far away. May the stars continue to shine over the endless seas. May you have a relaxing holiday, quiet night, and good dreams. Thank you for going on this journey. Good night.